Hello, and thank you so much for joining us here in our home studio. We are about to start our first podcast episode, delving into the pages of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone, depending upon where you're watching. So before we jump into the episode, Blake and I would love to welcome you, and first and foremost, hit that share button below if you have friends who also love Harry Potter. Maybe they're rereading the books while they're spending their summertime or their winter time, depending upon what hemisphere you're in. But we would love to have more of you join in our read-along as we delve into these books yet again. They brought us great joy. So just hit that share button or retweet if you're on Twitter. We're going live right now on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And I would love it if you could comment below, Blake, and I can see your comments. We're not always able to respond right away. It is something that we will do at the end of the episode sometimes, or we'll definitely come back and write. But let us know where you're tuning in from. Keep the conversations going amongst yourselves. It really makes this fun. It's a huge part of the reason that Blake and I go live, so that way you get to have fun in the comments. And I will say that if you're watching us on Facebook, you want to make sure that you're following us at the Mary and Blake page directly, because that's where the best conversation happens on Facebook.
Hello, people from Phoenix. We got New York City. We got people from all over the place happening here. Indiana. We're having some fun. So, guys, thank you for joining us.
Guys and gals.
Sorry, guys and gals. I apologize. California, Tennessee, Fort Lauderdale. We got people from all over the place joining us. Ohio. So everybody, thank you for joining us and taking the time and having fun with us and just enjoying the chat that we normally have. This is a fly in the wall experience for everybody who wants to check out how we make our podcasts and how the things go on here. And most of you already know that. So we will see your comments, as Mary said. We will, if we don't mention them in the show, we will go back and read all of them and more than likely reply to all of them, because I don't have a life. All I do is just worry about all the things that you guys are saying. We got people from Illinois, Kansas, Canada. All right, New York.
Yay!
So Long Island. So yeah, that's the deal, ladies and gents. Again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for sharing. If you do share, you can write, what's a good Harry Potter word for sharing, do you think? What do you think would be an appropriate spell or special keyword?
We solemnly swear we're up to no good.
As if they shared, they need to write, we solemnly swear we're up to no good.
Yeah,
that's a lot to type out.
I'm sure. What's
they could do the
expecto patronum? So, because we're their Patronus.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
there you
go.
So
if you do hit share, write expecto patronum
and
below.
then hashtag the Potterverse.
Yes, the Potterverse.
Yeah.
When you do share.
Anytime you share, or anytime you want to interact with us on any kinds of social media, just make sure you use that hashtag the Potterverse. That way, we can always go back to those conversations later on in life or later on in the night. And talk about that and have some fun. So, use the hashtag the Potterverse, expecto patronum, and I decided, by the way, I didn't decide. I think that the world decided.
I was meaning
Mary.
in the comments tonight, so I could see who's sharing, so I can shout them out.
Oh,
That's
sure.
what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant if they shared, do the expecto patronum.
No, I'm saying if they share, I want to be able to be like, yay, thank you for sharing somebody, so they could just write shared, which is kind of boring.
Got it. Yeah, don't put shared. That sucks.
They could put sherbet lemon.
No.
Okay.
Put expecto patronum.
Okay.
Expecto patronum. I like it.
All right.
So expecto patronum. Put it in the comments if you did share this. Please do share. So that's that. Are we gonna do this, Marvin?
Yes.
You ready to make a podcast?
Yes, we are.
All right, so we're gonna have 10 seconds for
room tone,
and then we're going to make our podcast.
Awesome.
Okay, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes. This episode of the Potterverse is brought to you by MinuteWithMary.com. For those of you who don't know, in addition to podcasting and geeking out and hanging out with my husband and my kids, I love to help people feel more confident and creative when it comes to their beauty and skincare. So I personally am a huge fan of mascara. I've always been a huge fan of mascara, but especially now since we're walking around with a mask on all the time in the state of Rhode Island, I like to make sure my lashes look amazing. Wouldn't you say, Blake?
Absolutely. Your lashes always do look amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My favorite mascara is my 4D mascara. It's got these little microfibers built in. It's a one-step tube. It'll make your lashes look like you have fake lashes on, like those glue-on strips that always get messy and crazy. Yeah, no more of that. So this one little magical tube is like my elder wand, and because I love it so much, I want to make sure that you, our listeners, get a great discount to try it on out yourself. You can go to minutewithmary.com/discount. From Providence, Rhode Island, welcome to the Potterverse. It's a podcast dedicated to the book and film universe of Harry Potter. So grab your favorite wands and time turners. Let's step into the night and pursue that flighty temptress adventure. As if I don't sit there awkwardly enough during room tone when we collect in the beginning. Blake likes to have me sit during a long intro.
You know, fine. Maybe I will cut the intro.
I think it would be a good idea.
Maybe I'll cut it by like a few seconds.
Thank
How's that
you.
sound?
I would greatly appreciate
Fine,
that.
fair enough.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? My name is Mary Larson.
My name is Blake.
Yes, it
and
is.
I'm a little insecure now. You don't think my intro is good? You think my intro is too long?
No, I think it's really great. I think it's very inspiring and enthralling, but seeing as how we're not only recording this as a podcast episode, but we're actually doing this live on video on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, I just kind of sit here awkwardly. At least you get to look busy and productive with the mouse and the keyboard and like fancy and stuff.
I got things going on.
Yeah, not me.
I got things going on.
I'm just a girl in a world. That's it.
Well, welcome
That's all
everybody.
that you let me be.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
So this is our first attempt at the chapter read along for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or otherwise, as my daughter calls it, AKA the Philosopher's Stone. I'm very excited about it. This is something that I really like this chapter, and the more that I've started to read the book, I've really appreciated the book a lot more. So I'm very excited by this. I think we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna have a good time analyzing this chapter, and this is how Harry Potter, the universe, was introduced to the world. I mean, think of that. This chapter introduced the world to Harry Potter and everything along with it. So I think that's just the coolest thing ever. Mary, what do you think about that?
Oh, it's great because we actually start the world of Harry Potter. We start this first book not through Harry Potter's eyes. So much of the series is done through Harry's perspective, where we're following him around on his adventures. But really, we kind of kick things off in a frame of view that we, as non-magical folk, otherwise known as muggles, would feel comfortable with. You know what I mean? We understand everything. So we're able to feel secure in this environment. And yet things go a little differently than the normal Tuesday happens for the Dursley family.
Well, remember, guys, go to maryandblake.com. Check out all the great podcasts that we got there. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just check us out, Mary and Blake. And thank you for all the reviews. Thank you for being a part of our community and enjoying the show. If you are watching us on YouTube Live, thank you. If you're watching us on Facebook Live or whatever, thank you very much. Instagram, Twitter, all of it. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you do put up the reviews out there and subscribe to all the Mary and Blake channels. Well, if you're listening to this on the podcast app, thank you for listening to us there. Check out all the show notes there. We'll have all the links for all the things that are appropriate for catching up on all things Mary and Blake.
I completely forgot to read. I was going to read like a quote
well,
to begin this off.
you know what? We're going to start the show and then you can read.
Okay.
That's how we'll get into it. You ready to get into the show?
Yes.
Let's do it.
A letter? Repeated Professor McGonagall faintly, sitting back down on the wall. Really, Dumbledore? You think you can explain all of this in a letter? These people will never understand him. He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day in the future. There will be books written about Harry. Every child in our world will know his name.
Such a beautiful entry. Such a beautiful entry. Good choice, Mary.
Well, thank you.
I kind of like this. I think every chapter we should pick a little passage that you should read to intro the episode. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm down.
See, we're fumbling along with this.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work
as we
in progress.
go.
We're having
Yes.
fun with it, ladies and gents. Actually, I decided that I'm also going to add, as we were just doing this, I decided we're going to add the "We solemnly swear we're up to no good" soundbite to the intro.
Okay.
So that way, when we close it, mischief managed.
Okay.
That's how it works.
All right.
I just thought of it.
So, short recap for people who may not be reading along. Once again, we are going to be reading through all of the books. Yes, all 7 of the magical
We got a lot
Harry
of Harry Potter
Potter
ahead of
books
us.
to go through. And we're doing the podcast episode chapter by chapter. We're aiming to have these podcast episodes approximately 20 minutes long. We don't
20
want
to
to
25, depending.
We don't want it to take too awfully much long of your time, and we're hoping to get at least 2 out per week, so that way you can read along, whether you're working, juggling a family, reading other books. It is a fun series that you can either read. They not only have, the regular books, but if Blake wants to pick up and show our friends who are watching us live, they've got the beautiful illustrated versions that you can check out, and also the audiobooks that you can listen to. So this, of course, is all about Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. So, Blake, if you could quickly recap what happens in this chapter, if people haven't necessarily...
Recapping.
Yeah.
I'm
you
recapping.
recap, yeah.
Thanks for shoving that on me. All right, so basically what happens in this chapter is Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall are waiting to see what happens with Harry, because he is being transported from Godric's Hollow to number 4 Privet Drive by Hagrid, who is riding a fun little tidbit here, Sirius Black's motorcycle, which I think goes really unnoticed for many years. Like I feel like this is something that just people overlook. It's a small detail that nobody really pays attention to. Sirius Black's motorcycle. And they discuss what happens to Harry, or what happened to Harry in vague details, what happened to his family in vague details. And they also discuss how famous the world will be, how famous Harry will be in the wizard world. And they talk about the Dursleys, and all that good time stuff happens, Mary. So that is the beginning of this chapter.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
Or that is this chapter.
And that's how we... And did you talk all about... Sorry, for those of you who are listening, I had to go check on my kid. I was trying to be slick. Did you get to talk about how we got to be in the daily life of Vernon?
Yeah, actually, this is something that I want to say. This first chapter, I think, is the reason why the Harry Potter universe became so popular. This first chapter, this introduction.
How come?
Because it sets everything up that you need to know instantly. And there's some answers, but there's also enough intrigue where you're like, what is happening? And the characters are already brought to life. The author really knew what she was doing when she came to writing this first chapter. I mean, let me read the first words. The first words of this chapter are my favorite. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. That introduction right there is incredible, because it already sets up a standard for Mr. and Mrs. Dursley. They think they're perfectly fine. They are perfectly just normal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Just
and
a
there's
little bit of sass.
A little bit of an attitude with you.
Like you said, that first sentence kicks things off. Delve even deeper inside those words.
Yeah, well, what's even more important here is that these words, you know what? it goes on even further. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious because they just didn't hold with much nonsense. Now, I'm reading from the British version, which is, I'm not sure if there's a difference in the...
There are.
There are, okay. Well, no, in
but
the
like
first,
that,
in the
yeah,
first
you're fine
phrases.
for the first
okay.
few phrases, yeah.
So, here we go. This is really important because we're opening up with the Dursleys. Now, this book is entitled Harry Potter, and it's introducing you to these characters that are totally unrelated to Harry Potter. There's no mention.
They're completely related.
No, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
but they're not magical.
They're introducing these characters as though they're going to be main characters, and they're introducing these people. Like, there's no mention of the word Harry Potter at all in this first paragraph. This first chapter, it finally gets to it about 2.5 paragraphs in, and it's only about the Potters.
Whisper, yes.
It's the Potters. They didn't think they could bear it if anyone found out about the Potters. Mrs. Potter and Mrs. Dursley's sister, but they hadn't met for several years. In fact, Mrs. Dursley pretended she didn't have a sister because her sister and her good-for-nothing husband were as un-Dursleyish as it was possible to be. The Dursleys shuddered to think what neighbors would say if the Potters arrived in the street. Like, that opening statement is so rich with character and also plot. Okay, this is the Potters are related, I guess, to the Dursleys. Mrs. Dursley is the Potter's sister, but they are, I guess, completely abnormal from the Dursleys, or opposite of the Dursleys. What about the Potters is so magical? What about them is so bad? What about them is so un-Dursleyish? What is in fact Dursley-ish? And what I'm trying to get at is this sets up a tone and it sets up a expectation immediately that something is going to go wrong for the Dursleys.
Something will not be normal.
Something is going to take this normal and put it on its head.
Yeah.
And that is spectacular.
You know, I love that you pointed out even just that first sentence, because of course they live at number 4. 4 is like the sides of a square. You can just think of square. Like, he's so square. You know, he's just like so like blah, whatever. Such a dweeb. And Privet Drive. So privet is a type of like bush. Like just not a nice, welcoming, just a little hedge. So very unwelcoming, just kind of like a blasé kind of number, not a super fun number. Like the number 5, my favorite number, for example, to even go from. But, you know, we're with Mr. Dursley and he just kind of lives like this, you know, normal life. Poor thing doesn't even look out a window. He decides to keep his back to the window, but maybe that's because he's so focused. And you and I were talking about how interesting it was to read this chapter in particular, looking kind of through the eyes of the Dursleys.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
because if you think about it, aside from the not squabble, but just like breaking up of Petunia and her sister Lily, really, Mr. and Mrs. Dursley and their son Dudley are trying to live what is a normal life. And I thought about how much of our youth and our teenage years, you're just trying to fit in. You're just trying to fit in with the norm. You know, there's a few of us who march to the beat of our own drums, who don't care about fitting in with the norm. But really, for a lot of people, even still in society, want to be fitting in and seen as normal. How many of us have issues when we're on Facebook and we see people doing things that we wish we were doing, or their bodies are the shape that we wish they were? We're always trying to compete with others and keep up with the Joneses. And that's what the Dursleys do until they've met Harry.
Oh, especially Mrs. Dursley.
Right?
Who she says, Mrs. Dursley was thin and blonde and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences, spying on the neighbors. Oh, my. Like, again, that writing is so tactile. You can see this lady craning her neck over a fence, looking at these people, comparing herself to everybody else. spectacular writing.
And they've got
Spectacular.
this child that they've invested, all of this loving care. We see later on, it's really in the form of gifts and spoiling, I want to say. And he spends all this attention on him, but really they're doing what they think is right.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing anything necessarily malicious that we can tell as of yet. They just seem to be the most ordinary muggles. And then, of course, we get the foil, the complete opposite, by being introduced to Albus Dumbledore.
Right. And not only that introduction is set up in a very specific and awesome way. The amount of tension that is executed in this chapter, and it begins almost immediately when Mr. Dursley is in his neighborhood and he's looking at certain things and he's realizing that some things are off, like when the owl flutters past his window, or when he sees a cat just sitting there staring at a map. And these are all things that he's seeing, but doesn't quite want to acknowledge that there's something odd happening.
Well, and how many times does that happen to you? Maybe you get a little deja vu. Maybe you see that black cat. Maybe you see the black cat twice, and it's like a deja vu black cat, and you're like, oh, heck no, this is not going to be a good day.
Right.
But, all of us have those moments where maybe you jinx. You say the same thing as somebody, or you call somebody when you're just thinking, or they call you when you're thinking about them. Like, all of these little things happen. So they don't necessarily irk Vernon Dursley. As it says in the book, he pretty much forgets about seeing the cat. It isn't until he really hears the name, the Potters.
Right, and he says, "Oh, what is it? Fear flooded him when he heard somebody mentioned their son Harry." And he starts making excuses like, "Oh, well, Potter wasn't such an unusual name, and he was sure there were lots of people called Potter who had a son called Harry. Come to think of it, he wasn't even sure if his nephew was called Harry. He'd never even seen the boy. It might have been Harvey or Harold." There was no point in worrying Mrs. Dursley. She always got so upset at the mention of her sister, and he didn't blame her if he'd had a sister like that. But all the same, those people in the cloaks. And it goes even further until it gets to the point where he gets so distraught and when he hears someone mentioning it, and he hears the word muggle.
Oh.
And he hears about the name you-know-who. And this right here is another example of how there are
even
answers.
a muggle like yourself. He was referred to as a muggle and not like the nicest way.
There is enough answers here where you're like, okay, something is going on crazy here, right? Like we as readers know that something is afoot.
You know what I've always wondered? How much about the wizard world does Vernon Dursley know? So we, of course, as I said, know that Petunia is not happy about the wizard world because she wasn't invited to it. Her sister Lily was invited. Her sister Lily had magical powers. And Petunia, we find out later, even writes to Dumbledore, begging to be allowed into Hogwarts.
Right.
Begging. And Dumbledore writes her back and is like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. You just ain't got it. You just are not magical. And that is what stewed in her. So if you think about this family, about these people who are always trying to keep up with the Joneses, Petunia was denied access.
Right.
So how much has she told Vernon about Hogwarts, about wizards in general? Part
of me thinks that she told him a little bit because he has to understand the kind of vitriol that she has for her sister. He may not understand completely why, but he must know some detail about it.
Imagine that date, or is it like after you're married where you're like, so, gotta tell you something. My sister, we don't really get along. And it's not just like she's in a cult.
She's a witch. He's like, yeah, I know. Yeah, she's a witch. I know. I get it.
And you're like, no, I don't think you do.
No. You ever seen Bewitched? You ever seen that show?
It's kind of like that.
She really is a witch. Like, imagine that conversation.
I think this chapter is one of the reasons and why I connected so quickly with Harry Potter. I marched to the beat of my own drum as a teenager. Like, I vividly remember being like, I'm not going to do that just because the cool kids are. Like, I don't like it, so why would I do that? There were these things that I'm now proud of myself. At 38 years old, I'm like, way to go, 16-year-old Mary, for not doing XYZ. But it's hard. And what I love about Harry is that he doesn't know it yet, but as we see him later on, he is himself. Like, he doesn't try to just fit in with the Dursleys, who have tried so hard. You know, we've all known these people who put so much pressure on themselves and call people names and ostracize them just because they're different.
Right,
and that's what we start to feel. We're kind of cool and okay with the Dursleys. You know, they're judgmental, and suddenly we're like, ooh, we're judging them for being judgmental. Okay, I'll take a step back. But as we read more about how they don't like things that are different, you get a little bristled feeling.
It's very British. Like, that's what I feel like. It's very British of them. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, everything is just very proper, and it has to be a very certain way. And if it...
I know a lot of British people that aren't proper.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I appreciate what you're saying. I appreciate it.
It's very like, it's very like the Earls.
It's like the Earls.
Very much like the Earls.
Yes. Yes.
That's my maiden name.
Yes. And her that side of the family is very Dursley-ish.
Very, very Dursley-ish. And there I was, not fitting in.
You were Harry. That's what it was.
What are you going to do when you grew up? Play my saxophone.
There's a great passage here too. Mr. Dursley sat frozen in his armchair. Shooting stars all over Britain, owls flying by daylight, mysterious people in cloaks all over the place, and a whisper about the Potters. Mrs. Dursley came into the living room carrying 2 cups of tea. It was no good. He'd have to say something to her. He cleared his throat very nervously. Petunia, dear, have you heard from your sister lately, haven't you? And no, why? Funny stuff on the news. You know, owls and shooting stars, and there were a lot of funny-looking people in the town today. So, snapped Mrs. Dursley. Well, I thought just maybe it was something to do with, you know, her lot. Like, this conversation also gives you insight into their relationship. She's so quick to snap at him about...
That's her trigger.
And he's almost nervous. He is frightened. He is very unsure about even saying anything to her, but he can't help himself. He doesn't... That conversation has to happen.
Well, and also he'd probably want to be the one to let her know. You know what I mean? If this is really what's going on, I might want to warn my wife. So, as I said, we move on and we meet Dumbledore. And we find out that that cat who was sitting on the ledge was actually Professor McGonagall all the time. What's funny is that he comes up and she changes into herself. And she's like, how'd you know it was me? And he says, I've never seen a cat sit more sternly.
Yeah.
So get this. Professor McGonagall, while everybody was partying, jumping around, wearing their robes in public, doing things that are not allowed under the statute of secrecy. However, fun fact, Pottermore said the female prime minister of magic at this time said, you know what? Voldemort's dead. Do whatever you want to do. If the muggles find out about us, whatever. Like, go have fun and celebrate. So it was okay. Deedris Diggory, who we end up meeting later on, McGonagall even mentions, like, it was probably him shooting off fireworks. I heard all these things in the news. So this entire day, everyone was celebrating. And Dumbledore even calls her out. He says, everyone's been partying. You've been chilling here at 4 Privet Drive? Why? And she says, I wanted to see where you are bringing this baby to.
Right. And they're these truly awful people. Like, oh, it's Deedless Diggle, by the way.
Diggle.
Not Diggory.
Oh, my God. Oh, Cedric. Never mind. R.I.P. R.I.P.
Is that your boyfriend? Oh, no. Don't kill Cedric.
Oh, my goodness. So what I also loved about this is she's not fighting, but she's questioning Dumbledore. Like, why is the baby coming here? Like, what? And first off, she wants to make sure what happened. She doesn't even fully understand. I heard that Lillian, you know what I mean? I heard the Potters died, except not Harry. And so Dumbledore kind of confirms all this for her. And he still is a little uncertain about what exactly happened. But yes, we're bringing the baby here. And Professor McGonagall says, why? Why would you keep him with these muggles?
Because you need to get him away from all of the stuff. And I love Dumbledore in this chapter. I love Dumbledore in this chapter because he is giving out information only as he sees fit, even to someone he trusts, like McGonagall. You already get the sense that they have somewhat of a friendly relationship between the two.
Yes.
And you get a sense that they're relatively
Yet he
close.
doesn't call her Minerva. He calls her Professor McGonagall.
Right, but the way that they interact and the way
Yes.
she even says to him, she's talking about who, and he's saying, call him by Voldemort, please, will you? And then she says, but yeah, you can do that, but we're not you. You're the most powerful. Like, she's telling him, you're the most powerful wizard there is. And yet, Dumbledore is doing this really great thing where he knows a lot more than what he's laying on. And he's almost, in this chapter, playing the fool.
He completely is. So here's Voldemort. I mean, here's Dumbledore, who we learn through the lens of Minerva McGonagall is like the best wizard right now. The best wizard. What Dumbledore knows that he doesn't share with a single soul is he needs baby Harry to live with the Dursleys, not because he doesn't want him growing up famous, but because he needs to be with his aunt, because he needs his mother's blood to protect him.
Right.
Like, who knows what J.K. Rowling actually... The author, excuse me. Broke my commandment. Who knows what she was thinking for certain as she wrote this bit.
Yeah, here's a question. Do you think she had the whole thing mapped out?
I don't even know.
Or did you think she had like a basic premise and...
I think she had a basic premise.
Like she had an idea that Harry became part of Voldemort, got himself onto Harry and that Harry had to die in order for all that. Okay. All right.
I believe all that. I'm wondering about this situation, but this is how it's tied in. Because honestly, the Dursleys stink. The Dursleys stink, and I'm going to start to do a little Dumbledore bash. And for those of you who Dumbledore is your favorite character, I'm really sorry. I adore that man in many ways, and there's also major flaws with him. One of the things that I hate, that Minerva was so right, is a letter. You're going to put a letter to explain all of this. And he blindly trusts the Dursleys to read this letter. By the way, Harry, your parents are blown up by Voldemort. Totally cool. We'll see you when you're 11. Peace. Don't get rid of that scar because it might be useful. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. They don't read him the letter. Newsflash, Dumbledore. Nor does he come and check up on them. Like, what kind of foster care system is this? He never checks up on Harry. And I love how he puts this letter in there, thinking that Harry will have it all explained to him by a loving, nurturing family. And really, it's poor Hagrid who has to break the news to him later.
Eventually.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he just leaves a letter and never checks back up on him. What is the world? Like, he needs like a little baby video camera system.
Right.
You know, the kind that a lot of the parents have now where it's attached to your mobile device.
Yes.
He needed a baby cam, like a nanny cam, a Dursley cam.
Oh man. And the other thing I like about this too is that, again, this chapter, it puts you right in the middle of wizarding history, right? With no real back history. You're just expected to go along. All of a sudden, you're being introduced to Voldemort, but nobody's saying his name. They're calling him you-know-who. Why are they calling him you-know? Why is everybody just so afraid of calling Voldemort by this person's name? Not only that, they're introducing the big bad of the entire series within the first chapter. Here's Voldemort. You should be really scared of him. People are so scared, we can't even say his own name. Yep. Right? And is going to come get you. It also shows that Dumbledore is not afraid of him. Why is he not afraid of him? But why is everybody else afraid of him? He even says Voldemort has powers that I would never have. He is capable of more things than I'm ever capable of.
Jennifer L. Dominic on Facebook is reminding us all that Dumbledore did leave the squib behind.
Ah, yes. Well, that's not.
We'll meet her next chapter.
That's not quite a nanny cam, but it's probably the closest thing. But
he only sees her like once a year, right?
I'm not sure about that.
I'm pretty sure when she goes through her like yearbook of all her cats and everything. Well, we'll meet her in chapter 2.
And then we're introduced after the conversation between McGonagall and Dumbledore. about why is Harry here? You're going to leave him here with these people. And yes, I'm going to leave him here because he's safer here. He shouldn't be involved in all this stuff. We're introduced to Hagrid. And I really like this thing with Professor McGonagall. She said, she questions Hagrid's job bringing Harry there. She says, you think it wise to trust Hagrid with something as important as this? And then Dumbledore says something intriguing yet again. I would trust Hagrid with my life.
So would I.
The amount of world building that is happening within this chapter is incredible.
Right?
I'm
pretty sure Hagrid might be my top character.
That is why this...
Hagrid's my boy.
I think that's why I think this chapter is the linchpin for Harry Potter. Without this chapter, this book starts off just like any other book. I mean, think of what the beginning of chapter 2, which is the Vanishing Glass. You know, it takes place when Harry's he's awake, and you get the sense that the Dursleys hate him, but
this paints a marvelous picture.
But this is what sets the story apart from everything else. The amount of world building that is being told to you, and not like, okay, here's a history class. It's two people having a conversation that would happen between two people who knew each other normally.
Yep.
This is all expository, but it's natural, and it's so well written that
you don't
it's
feel
perfect.
like you're being shoved important points down your throat. I completely agree.
Yep, absolutely.
So there you have it. There's chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. And we can't wait to
one more thing I'd like to say about this
Yep.
is I love the interaction between 3 characters, between Hagrid, McGonagall, and Dumbledore when they're finally all together. Hagrid is very emotional.
Oh my gosh.
Could I say a goodbye to him, sir? He bent his great shaggy head over Harry and gave him what must have been a very scratchy, whiskery kiss. Then suddenly Hagrid let out a howl like a wounded dog. Shh, hissed Professor McGonagall. You'll wake the muggles. Sorry, sobbed Hagrid, taking out a large
Bless his heart.
And she's saying, get a grip on yourself, Hagrid. We'll be found. And then Dumbledore stepped over the low garden wall and walked to open the front door. And he says, okay, that's it. We have no business staying here. We might as well go and join the celebration.
You have no business staying here. Let's go party. Let's drop this baby off with a letter.
Right.
And party.
But what I love is that Dumbledore is taking these 2 characters who are diametrically opposed from each other.
Foes.
No,
they're not foes.
Good point.
That's a little Hamilton for you.
They're diametrically opposed. Professor McGonagall is very logical. She's very
Stern,
to the point.
Yeah.
They're all business.
However, both McGonagall and Hagrid are House Gryffindor.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you would think that she'd be Ravenclaw, but she is Gryffindor. Although I was reading somewhere.
Do you remember her at the Battle of Hogwarts? I sure do.
I was reading one of her character bios. I think it was in our kids' book.
She got to choose.
Well, no, the Sorting Hat took forever for her. It made her wait 2 hours to decide whether or not she was Ravenclaw or Gryffindor, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But and Hagrid is the emotional part. He is the emotional crux of it all. He is showing you, the reader, the what the other wizards are going through. Yes, they're celebrating the fact that Voldemort's gone, but the other half of it is that these people are dead. And Dumbledore is the one that makes the 2 jive together. He sees the intellectual part of it, but he also sees the emotional part of it. And he knows far more than what he's letting on to these 2, but he also knows that they're both right. And he has to form a synthesis in order for them to go forward.
Fun fact, Hagrid had Sirius Black's motorbike. Would Sirius Black still have been captured and thrown in Azkaban if he still had his bike? Because he probably got captured that night.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, by the way, people are asking for Here Comes the General for our Hamilton reference.
Oh, diametrically opposed foes.
Here it is.
Here comes the general. Washington.
You're welcome. So you know what it is? I don't have it on my normal feed here. I have it on my Outlander feed, so I got to switch it.
Got to switch some things up. So on that note, my friends, we've kept you a little longer than we were expecting, but this is
Yes.
our first go around for a chapter.
Well, this chapter is just so rich.
It is.
And there's no way you can just talk about this chapter in under a half hour. You just
Agreed.
can't do it. There's so much more here than what we went into.
I know.
But it is a hot take for the ages is that this chapter is what makes the Harry Potter series as important as it is. It's this chapter.
Agreed.
So there you go.
Awesome. So on to chapter 2. Thank you so much for checking this out.
Are you
Time
ready?
to close the show.
Let's close the show out.
Thank you, everyone, once again for tuning in to this episode of the Potterverse, where we're, of course, exploring all of the books and film and delving into all sorts of things in the wizarding world. So thank you for checking it out. As of right now, the day that we're recording this episode, the podcast is still not fully up in your podcatchers of choice, but it should be someday soon. I think things are just a little delayed getting through there because of the coronavirus.
Yep.
But you can, of course, stay tuned and hear them live on our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram feeds, or you can catch them, of course, on the replay just by searching Mary and Blake.
Go to maryandblake.com. Check out all of the podcasts and blogs that are there and everything that's happening with us. And just thank you guys. Thank you for joining us in chapter 1.
That's right.
I'm all about it. I'm all about the Harry Potter
Me
life
too.
right now.
So for now, my name's Mary.
My name's Blake.
Mischief managed.
Okay.
Okay, everybody, so we're going to be back here, fingers crossed, as long as our kids go to sleep, which, as you got to see, one of them has not. You still awake, buddy? Well, maybe he fell asleep now because he's been asleep on the couch. We're hoping to be back live here on Wednesday. So in 2 days, we'll be going over the next chapter, The Vanishing Glass. And that's kind of our game plan, to be going live Mondays and Wednesdays if
At
the kids
8 p.m.
sleep at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to check it on out. Please hit that share button if you haven't already. It helps other people learn about the Potterverse. You can use the hashtag the Potterverse. And I think that's about it.
Melissa's saying it is in the podcasts app on her iPhone.
Oh my gosh, it must have just got
It
there.
must have just come out. So,
Yay.
so there you go. Check us all out there, and it's going to be on Stitcher. It's going to be on Google Podcasts. It's going to be on Spotify. It's going to be on all the different things. I'm just waiting for this to be approved. So as soon as it gets approved, I will tell everybody.
Yes, awesome. So check that out. Hit that subscribe button. Do us a favor, too, if you are someone who uses Apple Podcasts, to screenshot the podcast and share it in your stories. A lot of people are checking out Instagram and Facebook stories, and let them know to check out hashtag the Potterverse.
And please do, if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us some reviews, some stars, and some written reviews. If you think it sucks, tell us. If you like it and you think it's the best thing that happened since, chocolate cake.
Oh,
Because
it's
I don't
really
like the
good.
sliced bread. Sliced bread's overdone. It's got to
Okay.
be chocolate cake.
Okay.
If you like it, please tell us why. It helps. It helps us, and it helps people understand the
And
podcast.
if you got nothing
and what
nice
we
to
do.
say, don't say anything at all.
That's true. Yeah, sure.
Just kidding.
Veronica says she has chills with mischief managed over that great
Oh,
theme.
yay.
And Margaret is saying it is, in fact, on Stitcher right now.
Awesome.
So,
Yay. It must have been the big day then.
Yeah, today must have been the day where all
It
these
was
things
Monday,
got approved.
so maybe people were at work and
Yeah, good point. Good point.
checking things on out. All right, our friends, thank you so much once again. We do also have, what is Join the Nerd? Is that?
Oh, yeah, we forgot to mention that. JoinTheNerdClan.com. That is where you can support Mary and I in all of our adventures that we're doing. It will say Outlander Cast at the top, but it is for Join the Nerd Clan. It's for all of the things that happen at Mary and Blake Media. And whether it is our Crown podcast, which we actually have to do, we have to finish it up over the next couple weeks. Thursday, yes. So if you want to listen to our next few episodes of The Crown, keep Common Crown on, go to jointhenerdclan.com, where you can become part of the Nerd Clan, have access to that community, and get all the great perks that we do here at Mary and Blake Media. And by doing that, you help keep all of these things open and help keep the show going. So
thank you.
That's
Thank
that.
you so much. You know what we didn't do? You didn't use either of our fancy cameras today.
that's because the camera that is on me was off for some reason.
Oh, that makes sense.
I need to get webcams. The phone ones just ain't cutting it for me. I got to do it.
We're using our old iPhones as our extra camera.
And for some reason, the one that goes on Mary works perfectly fine every time. The one that's on me, it
says no, thank you.
It pisses
Move on.
me off.
All right, guys. On that note, we're going to let you go, and we will talk with you on Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.